Broadcasting from the heart of the nation, the next generation in conservative talk radio. This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Why, yes, it is. What is up, my friends? Welcome into it. Happy Monday, man. We are going to hit the ground running today. It is a brand new week. We're going to carpe diem all over this place, set the tone for the whole rest of the week, and there's so much to get to. I don't even know how to cover it on the show. So first and foremost, welcome into it. It's the Voice of Reason. I'm Andy Hoosier, doing the thing.
Do it live!
Like we do here on the program each and every day here on the show. I don't want to waste any time because we have some breaking news happening right now.
What's trending today?
As there is a live press conference going on in the White House with President Donald Trump, all the health officials for the nation, the announcement after their 6-month study on autism and the cause of autism going from 1 in 10,000 children having autism to 1 in 33 having autism, which is a pretty drastic change, I would think. The announcement coming down, let's go live to that for just a moment. RFK Jr. just wrapped up speaking momentarily. This is a different doctor, I don't remember his name, that is speaking right now.
The prevalence of autism deserves an urgent response by the scientific community. As Bobby said, the NIH has invested a lot of money to study autism over the years, but the research has not produced the answers that families and parents of autistic children deserve, and autistic children themselves deserve. For too long, it's been taboo to ask some questions for fear the scientific work might reveal a politically incorrect answer. Because of this restricted focus in scientific investigations, the answers for families have been similarly restricted, often pointing families to behavioral therapies that don't work for every kid or suggest non-modifiable genetic factors as the cause. But genetics alone can't explain such a sharp rise in autism prevalence over just a few decades, as the president said. In coming months and years, as NIH scientists learn more that can help autistic children and their families, we won't delay. Like scientists often like to do, I can say as a scientist myself, it's really tempting to delay, but but in face of a problem like this, you have to move fast. But we will not delay before telling American people about what we find, and we will win the public trust with transparency and rigor. Already, our broadened focus on autism research has pointed to 2 items that will help families prevent and treat some cases of autism. I'll leave the good news on these 2 items to my close friends and colleagues, Dr. McCary and Dr. Oz. We've been working together closely on this problem for the past 6 months, and our cooperation represents an unprecedented collaboration with Secretary Kennedy's Department of Health and Human Services and with President Trump. I'm delighted to introduce Dr. Marty McCary, Commissioner of the Food and Drug Administration, who will tell you about these announcements of practical help for families with autism.
All right. We're going to stop right there, and we'll go back to it in just a minute when Dr. Ross speaks in just a little bit. But for those that may have missed it at the beginning, Donald Trump making the announcement really about 20 minutes ago is when the press conference started. So we have the first little bit of that. But if you have not heard the big news of the story today...
What's trending today?
After their first 6 months, before we even reveal what they found, can we just applaud and recognize the fact that a government agency that said we're going to spend 6 months doing a study and then we will report to you in 6 months actually came back and reported to us 6 months later. Usually it's like, well, we did this study and we're going to come out with these results, and then we just maybe get a press release afterwards. We get a little bit of information, and then it just kind of drifts off because it usually doesn't come out with what they want it to be, what they were hoping the results would be, until they actually fabricate the studies, the scientific method where they just abuse and destroy it to make it not what it's supposed to be. And then they turn around and be like, well, we have a political agenda to drive now. That's not what happened here. We have 6 months. And then whatever the findings are, we're going to release it to you. Now, many have concluded or thought throughout the years that vaccinations were the cause of autism, and that is still under investigation. According to Donald Trump, according to RFK Jr., that is still a possibility, and that's going to be more of a 3-year study as opposed to a 6-month study. But this was RFK Jr. literally just moments ago before we came on the air, right at the top of the hour, announcing that, believe it or not, Tylenol being used by pregnant women is really the leading cause of autism in the nation.
Including toxic and pharmaceutical exposures. At President Trump's urging, NIH, FDA, CDC, and CMS are turning over every stone to identify the etiology of the autism epidemic and how patients and parents can prevent and reverse this alarming trend. We have broken down the traditional silos that have long separated these agencies, and we have fast-tracked research and guidance. Historically, NIH has focused almost solely on politically safe and entirely fruitless research about the genetic drivers of autism. And that would be like studying the genetic drivers of lung cancer without looking at cigarettes. And that's what NIH has been doing for 20 years. As a result, we don't have an answer to this critical question, despite the cataclysmic impact of the epidemic on our nation's children. We are now replacing the institutional culture of politicized science and corruption with evidence-based medicine. NIH research teams are currently testing multiple hypotheses with no area off limits. We promise transparency as we uncover the potential causes and treatments, and we will notify the public regularly of our progress.
All right, so let's stop right there. We'll break some more of this down. This is literally happening as we're coming on the air and as we find more information that Tylenol. Now, I find this really relatively interesting because, to me, this is the media already going after Donald Trump, already going after RFK Jr. In fact, the headlines that were coming on before they even made the announcement, like 3 hours ago, hat tip to NPR on this story, they were already starting to downplay the story, which I don't get. I don't understand the politics, which I get. Okay, big pharma, I get the big pharmaceutical industries, I get all the big money behind this, big health industry, where many pregnant women, they go to the doctor and they're like, hey, I have a fever, I don't feel well, but I can't really take a lot of medicine because I'm pregnant with a child. And they're like, take Tylenol, totally fine for you. It's the softest, most calmest, most non-invasive type of medicine that's out there. Tylenol, just pop a couple Tylenol, you'll be fine. Now, before we just go on a complete tirade against big pharma and big health industries, I want to be very clear. Tylenol has some very strong medicine. And in fact, we have to give credit because the liquid Tylenol, the IV Tylenol, is literally what saved the life of my wife, little Mrs. Voice of Reason, who was in the hospital for sepsis, who had to get rid of infections, who was having a fever of 104 degrees for like 3 days straight, and who had major issues. And the only thing that solved it was a hospital-grade IV Tylenol that they had to inject. And for those that don't know, they actually put it into a stent deal. They had to run a PICC line from her elbow all the way up into her chest because it was such a strong antibiotic that if they actually put it directly into her arm, it actually would have eroded her blood vessels. Yeah, that's why we were a little freaked out and why we were scared about that whole situation, because no other antibiotic was touching the sepsis that she had. So they actually had to run the line from her elbow up into her chest, and they used some very, very strong Tylenol. We're not talking about that. We're talking about just the over-the-counter Tylenol that pregnant women were being told to use if they have a fever, if they're not feeling well. And come to find out, the acting agent in Tylenol, according to this study, is what's causing the massive increase of autism, along other factors that they're still continuously reporting on. But this is breaking. And for anybody, left, right, center, anybody out there, if you're worried about autism, and worried about the rates of autism, on why we're going from 1 in 10,000 to 1 in 33, you would say, well, I'm open to any explanation. I'm open to any reason on what we're putting into our bodies, any type of environmental factors, anything that's out there that would lead to a mental disorder, a mental health issue. Not saying that they're bad individuals, not saying that there's something wrong with them. I mean, there's something different, and we need to figure out why. And we're trying to figure that out. And anybody would be open to hearing, okay, what is it? And maybe we should try it. But instead, the headlines are from the NPR: Trump administration expected to link autism to Tylenol used during pregnancy shots. And they go on to say, well, it's unsubstantiated. New York Times: Trump announcement said to focus on unproven link between Tylenol and autism. That's why we're reporting on it. That's why they're making the announcement, because they're looking at the proven link between the two based on the study they've done for the past 6 months. But the New York Times already running on it 42 minutes ago. They didn't even make the announcement yet. Trump administration, the drug Trump plans to promote for autism shows real and fragile hope. Trump previews amazing autism announcement Monday expected. RPI defends professor contracted by CDC for controversial autism study. Anything they can do to degrade and demote this study because they don't want that answer out. And my question is why? Is you and I, the average American out there, if we have any more information to understand better why people are sicker than what they were before, I think we would be open to that information. And for Donald Trump to Donald Trump openly said during his speech, he was just like, hey, don't take Tylenol as a pregnant woman. You have other options out there. We'll find other options out there. There are other holistic options out there. Stop it.
There's no reason to give a baby that's almost just born hepatitis B. So I would say wait till the baby is 12 years old.
I think he's talking about other shots
and take
here.
hepatitis B. And I think if you do those things, it's going to be a whole different, it's going to be a revolution in a positive sense in the country. The FDA will be updating the label of an existing drug to reflect potential benefits in reducing some autism symptoms. This gives hope to the many parents with autistic children that it may be possible to improve their lives. That's one of the things that I'm very, very happy about. I mean, this was mostly going to be on how not to have the child affected, but we've learned some pretty good things about certain elements of genius that can be given to a baby, and the baby can get better. And in some cases, maybe substantially better.
All right, so not only are we talking about prevention now we're even talking about potentially curing autism with some different studies that they're looking at, which is really interesting. Real quickly, I want to go back live to Washington, D.C. with this press conference, still going with different doctors. Let's see what they had to say.
About the rising rates of neurodevelopmental disorders, including autism. President Trump and Secretary Kennedy are dedicated to radical transparency so that patients have the best, most up-to-date information. We are also sharing this information with our nation's doctors, and we encourage you, as always, to consult with your doctor to make the best decision for you. All too often, it's easy to think that medicines we buy without a prescription pose little to no risk for the mom or the baby. As you heard today, pregnant women who need high fever or pain reduction during pregnancy should take the lowest effective dose of acetaminophen for the shortest possible duration.
Acetaminophen.
Most
By the way,
women
that's the acting
will not
director
meet
in
these indications
Tylenol.
during their pregnancies. I am encouraged by these developments today because it is another example of our commitment to the American people to leave no stone unturned in improving the health of our nation's children. Next, I'm going to turn it over to some incredible mothers who are going to share more about their stories.
All right. We don't need to go through some of that, but new information coming out. Do you trust it? Do you believe it? RFK Jr. being one of the more controversial, and I say that in air quotes here for the radio listener, one of the more controversial leaders in the Trump cabinet because he wanted to just come in and completely overhaul what we thought we knew about the healthcare industry and what we thought we knew about our own personal health. And it's not the narrative that we've been driven into our brains, even as children, about how to stay healthy and what you can ingest and what's okay to consume and what's not okay to consume, and vaccinations and the food pyramid that they're apparently just redoing the entire thing. It's a completely different outlook. And I would say, is the unhealthiest nation on the face of the earth, what have we got to lose, right? We really can't be any worse than what we are right now. We could do a lot better on our own personal health, and for him to try to shake it up and to tie a link like this, it would make sense why some of the mainstream media is already going on the attack. Why? Because the vast majority of their advertisements and their sponsors for their networks are probably from the big pharmaceutical industries, and they are not going to like that one of the largest companies in the pharmaceutical industry out there, Tylenol, could be the reason why we've seen a massive increase in autism. This is going to lead to a big pharma war.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier. When reason meets radio. This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
But with Tylenol, don't take it. Don't take it. And if you can't live, if your fever is so bad, you have to take one because there's no alternative to that. Sadly, first question, what can you take instead? It's actually, there's not an alternative to that. And as you know, other of the medicines are absolutely proven bad. I mean, they've been proven bad with the aspirins and the Advils and others, right? And they've been proven bad. So I'd like to ask Bobby to get up to the podium and say a few words, and then Dr. Bhattacharya. And
All right, so there we are. So Donald Trump speaking a little while ago. Let's go live to him one more time. Trump speaking again, probably doing some Q&A. Let's see what he has to say after this. I'm telling you, man, it's going to be a big pharmaceutical war. It's going to be interesting to go after one of the biggest names in the healthcare industry like Tylenol. What's the response going to look like?
And there were rumors about both of them for a long time, but we're having them taken out. We're having them taken out of the vaccines. Hepatitis B, again, that's sexually transmitted, and we think you should wait. I think you should wait till 12. You know, I'm making these statements from me. I'm not making them from these doctors, because when they talk about, different results, different studies, I talk about a lot of common sense, and they have that too. They have that too, a lot. But I recommend the hepatitis B. Take it at 12. Sexually transmitted. You don't have to give it to the baby when the baby's 2 years old. And there are a lot of theories on that, but not when they're 12. Doesn't seem to be a problem at all. The MMR and the chickenpox. Chickenpox has already been broken out. It's a singular shot. But the MMR is...
Get rid of it.
It's not.
Get rid of it.
And I've heard for years that there's a problem with it. But they say that there's no problem if you do each shot separately, not put together. So an MMR, go out and do it separately. Don't take Tylenol. Don't give Tylenol to the baby after the baby's born. Every time the baby gets a shot, the baby gets a shot. They say, here, take a cup of Tylenol. I've heard that for years. Take Tylenol. Don't take Tylenol. Don't have your baby take Tylenol. Now, Tylenol is fine for people that aren't pregnant, that aren't in the situation that we're talking about. One very specific situation. If you're pregnant, don't take Tylenol. When you have your baby, don't give your baby Tylenol at all, unless it's absolutely necessary. Don't do it. Break up your visits to the doctors. Break them up. Do it in 5 if you can. Now, it's inconvenient. Inconvenient.
All right. We'll come back to that maybe a little bit later. Donald Trump going now. So not only are we getting the results from autism, but also on the way they're changing up the childhood vaccination cards, which it is insane to me. Absolutely insane. And you can call me an anti-vaxxer all you want to, but the fact that we would inject more than 70 different things into a newborn child between the first 2 years of their life, when they're first newborn, their second round at 2 years old, and we just keep injecting so much garbage into them is insane. Donald Trump mentioned the chickenpox. I do not know why we have a chickenpox vaccine. Makes zero sense to me whatsoever. Why in the world would we not try to give the kids have them get chickenpox naturally, and that way they can build up immunity, they have it in their system, and that way they're healthy moving forward. That's what we always did, and now we're like, it's so dangerous. I don't know anybody. Could be wrong. I have not seen anybody that died from chickenpox when they're 8, 9, 10 years old. It doesn't happen. Why do we need a vaccine to prevent? We don't want you to ever be sick ever again. Here's the thing. We live in a biological world, and it's just kind of common sense. The hepatitis B. Why are we giving 2-year-olds a hepatitis B shot? What are we doing? Can we rein some of these in? Can we pull them in? The problem is this is going to lead to a major pushback from big pharma that, in consequence, is going to lead to a big pushback from the mainstream media, denying it, saying it's crazy, saying it's conspiratorial, mostly because they're being funded by big pharma. That's their biggest income revenue stream, and they're not going to like that very much. But what the heck's the future going to look like for healthcare? This is going to be really interesting to follow and pay attention to.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier. Truth, reason, and common sense. This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Man, it's already started. I don't get it. So we shared out the feed from the announcement. President Donald Trump, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. regarding the announcement on their initial results of the study they've been doing on the cause of autism, saying that Tylenol for newborns and Tylenol for pregnant women one of the major reasons, or at least the acting factor within Tylenol, that's the cause for autism right now. And we posted it on social media already, getting major backlash. And people, of course, that are on the other side of the aisle that are just going after, just more lunacy from RFK Jr. Don't listen to it. It's all a bunch of hooiness. And I don't understand that mindset. Even if you don't like RFK Jr., I think he's fantastic. He's probably one of the best health directors that we've seen in modern American history, at least in my opinion. But even if you don't like the guy, if there's a study that's out there that is going after, and you can't say, well, it's bought and paid for, like we know it was majoritively, when it's on the other side of the aisle, that if it's coming out against a major company like Tylenol that pretty much dominates the healthcare industry with every product that they have out there, you would say, maybe I should take a look at this. And if I'm worried about autism rates going from 1 in 10,000 to 1 in 33 in this nation, that's a major jump. Maybe we should try something different. We were all focused on the vaccination issue, which they're still studying, and I think still has some kind of effect to it. Nope, completely bogus, Andy. You can't listen to that. But then if you come out with something like Tylenol, hey, don't take Tylenol. Just try something different. See if that increases or changes the rates of autism in this country. But already people just dismissing it. And I don't care where the information comes from. If it's something different that we haven't tried, then it's worth trying, because obviously what we're doing right now doesn't work. But to completely ignore it just blows my mind. We have a pandemic in this nation on autism rates, and you're just like, meh, nope, don't like that study, move on, just ignore it. These aren't the droids you're looking for. Very crazy to me. All right.
What's trending today?
I'm telling you, man, there's so much to get to today. I don't know how to cover it. So, announcement just a little while ago, Jimmy Kimmel going to be back on the air tomorrow. Do we really care on that one? That one's kind of strange. I didn't realize that he was such a big deal that automatically Disney hey, we're putting you back on. Here's our thoughts to it.
We don't care anymore.
Yeah, we just don't care. But that leads us to what's going to happen in the next week or so.
What's trending today?
With our next guest on the program on Friday, Speaker Mike Johnson releasing his statement after the passing of the continuing resolution funding the government for the next 7 weeks. It is a clean bill, which means no additional spending, like a legitimate CR. Still not the best idea, because we're still spending at like COVID levels at a $7 trillion budget. But at least it's not increasing it more. Being shut down in the Senate right now because Chuck Schumer and the Democrats say, even with a short-term 7-week funding bill, we want an additional $1.4 trillion on top of the spending right now for 7 weeks for social programs. Mike Johnson talking on Friday.
First was a common sense, very reasonable, nonpartisan effort to keep the government open. This is a very short 7-week holdover of government funding. We are going to allow more time for the appropriations process to continue. We have been working very hard here to get appropriations back to some semblance of regular order, and I'm proud of the work that the House has done, having passed 12 separate appropriations bills as the system is supposed to work, 3 off the House floor, 3 off the Senate floor. We voted to go to a conference committee to resolve the differences between those bills and to keep this process going.
All right, so that was Speaker Mike Johnson on Friday. Where are we at with this, and will we see a potential government shutdown on Tuesday next week at the end of the fiscal year 2025? Talk about some of this and so much more. Really happy to have back on the show. She is the Executive VP of Epic. Happy to have on Brittany Madni. Brittany, how are you, my friend?
I'm great, Andy. Happy to be back.
Yeah, so great to have you back on the show. We have a CR through the House now. The Senate says, nope, we're not going to touch it because in a short-term 7-week funding bill, we want an additional $1.5 trillion in spending for social programs, or else we're shutting down the government, and it's your fault for keeping the status quo. Brittany, what the heck's going on? Are we going to see the government shut down next week?
Well, what's going on is clearly that these Senate Democrats have absolutely no respect for the American taxpayer. We're already $37 trillion in debt. Our spending is outpacing growth, and our deficits are unsustainably high, Andy. We're getting to a point where we might be in a fiscal spiral in just a few years that could have some serious impacts on borrowing ability. And yet the folks in the Senate are saying, no, we won't even continue negotiating like adults. We want $1.5 trillion in additional spending for welfare on the taxpayer's credit card. That's the situation right now, and it's just unacceptable.
That is so crazy to me. You and I talked about last time you were on the air as well about the difference, discretionary funding, mandatory funding. So even with these battles, we have, what do you say, like seven appropriation bills that were passed out of the 12 right now. So we're getting closer. But at the end of the day, that's still only 25% of the federal budget, roughly, with these appropriation bills. The social programs are still growing right now. We don't need to increase this $1.5 trillion. They're already growing exponentially.
That's right. These social programs are growing exponentially. We're talking mostly for the CR purposes that Mike Johnson was referring to about that 25% of discretionary spending. But what the Democrats are looking at in their package is not just that 25%, but they're also trying to add on a bunch of stuff in the mandatory side of the ledger, including things like permanently extending Biden's COVID credits, which is really dangerous. That'll cost about $400 billion. They're looking at expanding food stamps and WIC. They're looking at bringing back funding for the Corporation of Public Broadcasting. They want to add an entire new inspector general so that they can keep watch over what's going on in Trump's budget office. They want to do all kinds of things that aren't even within the realm of appropriations.
That can't be popular, right? They know it's not going to go anywhere. This reminds me of like the strikes that we had seen from some of the unions that say we want to only work 25-hour work weeks at $50 an hour with a whole bunch of benefits. Like they know it's unreasonable and it's not going to happen, right?
I would think that they would know that it's unreasonable and it's not going to happen, but it just seems to me that they're a little unserious here, right? We talked a little bit about this last time, Andy. It is just a vicious cycle that we're trapped in right now. Every time that there are more dollars going out for government programs, it's the taxpayer on the hook. More taxes end up getting charged to the working people. That leads to more debt, leads to bigger welfare programs. And at the end of the day, this is just more government overreach, more intervention in people's lives. It's breeding a reliance on welfare and killing the American dream. And we're paying the price for that quite literally. So you would think that Chuck Schumer and his lackeys would understand just how detrimental this request is for an additional $1.5 trillion. But they haven't put anything reasonable on the table at this point, so who knows?
Yeah, they haven't put anything reasonable on the table, and I don't think they're going to anytime soon. So here's the question then. Let's say the government shuts down next week. We can't get through this even just 7-week continuing resolution, which I got to admit, Brittany, even though I'm frustrated that we're even having to do this in the first place, only going 7 weeks and having a clean one with no increase in spending, that's already kind of a small win, isn't it? Because even last year's continuing resolution from Republicans was like, well, we're going to do this, but then we need some additional spending for X, Y, and Z, whatever program. So a clean bill for 7 weeks is already a win that we're not growing at this time, right?
Absolutely. It's a win anytime we aren't spending one more dollar because that is the natural state of operations in Washington right now. It's just not the same kind of math that the average person is used to. Don't forget, in Washington, lack of an increase in spending is considered a cut.
Yes.
And I know we talked about this a little bit last time, but we're seeing it play out live right now.
Yeah, it's a really great point. We're talking with Brittany Madni, with EPIC, the Economic Policy Innovation Center, the Executive VP, as we talk about the upcoming budget debate that we're having here. Let's say we pass this or we shut down the government. Who knows what's going to look like next week if Democrats get on board, if enough Republicans can actually pass this continuing resolution for now. But let's talk about moving forward. There's rumors about a secondary reconciliation bill that could do some major reforms on social programs. Is that where we're going to see the changes right now? Is not through the budgetary process, but more through the reconciliation plan of actually maybe getting rid of some spending, conforming and actually merging different agencies and departments or different spending programs or whatever the case is. Is that where we're going to see the big change?
Listen, we've got to take an all of the above strategy here, Andy. Every opportunity that's in front of us, we must seize it. Otherwise, we're not going to get out of this hole that we're in.
Yeah.
So Reconciliation 2.0, absolutely the next place that we need to go. We've got 4 main reasons we need to take advantage here. First, There are some things in the president's agenda that have to be done through legislative action. He's doing great on the executive side, making reforms to agencies solo, but there are a lot of things that need Congress to act. The second thing is we need to fulfill the fiscal framework that was promised in the last deal. We're still a few $100 billion short of pairing up spending cuts to tax cuts, and we want to make sure that we're starting to bring spending in line with revenues, balancing that checkbook.
Yeah.
The third reason, Andy, there's some cutting room floor options to pick back up. There are a few things that just because the reconciliation process is tedious and somewhat complicated, some really good policies just didn't have enough time to be fully ripe and ready to go. There are a few things that we could revisit this time. And then finally, in the first reconciliation bill, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, there was a really important prohibition on funding for big abortion providers like Planned Parenthood. That's a huge win, but it only lasts 1 year. So we have another bite of the apple. It was sort of a test balloon. We wanted to see whether or not we could get it through the reconciliation process.
Yeah, we got to permanentize.
Now we got to come back and make sure that that doesn't expire and extend it permanently.
Yeah, let's make that happen. Yeah, Brittany, hang on the line. Got to take a hard break here. Right back after this for your Monday for the Voice of Reason. Stay here.
With Andy Hoosier. America's safe space for common sense. This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Yeah, welcome back to the program. Great to have you. A few minutes left as we wrap things up for a Monday today on the Voice of Reason. Trying to cram that 10 pounds of reason into that 5-pound bag. Trying to rebrand the millennial generation, one radio listener at a time. Have no fear, the Voice of Reason is here. As we start off your Monday today, government shutdown looming on Tuesday next week. Could we see it? Will Democrats get on board to vote a continuing resolution, or will they want to spend $1.5 trillion additional in spending in a 7-week span? That's insane to me. 7 weeks is what the CR is supposed to be for, funding until they finish the appropriations process. And remember, the appropriations only about 25% of the actual budget. The rest of it mandatory spending for all the social programs that are out there. And they want $1.5 trillion more in the discretionary spending, I guess, for reinforcing social programs that are in a completely different category of spending in a 7-week span. That to me is absolute lunacy. But if we don't,
we're all gonna die because of you!
That's what we get with this rhetoric each and every time. It's the typical story, the typical party lines, the typical drawing of the lines in the sand that we hear about this time every single year. We are hanging out with Brittany Madni. She's with Epic. EpicForAmerica.org is the website, and you can go and check out all the great work that they do. I got to admit, Brittany, I'm getting frustrated because I was hoping that by this time we would have said, hey, we're going to cut government spending by 40% or something. And right now we still have COVID level spending at $7 trillion for our annual budget. And like you said, and with them wanting to renew more of the COVID initiatives, we're not even in a pandemic anymore. Why would we try and push more of these programs and spend more money when we just don't need to do that?
Yeah, you're absolutely on the right track here. There's no reason for it. There's just no reason for it. Our debt levels right now are in such a state that we haven't seen it this high since the immediate period post-World War II. At least in World War II, our debt levels gave us victory over tyranny. Now our debt levels are driving us toward tyranny, toward bigger government. And this is just, to your point, it makes no sense that we would be even having this conversation, particularly because so much of it is tied to COVID spending, and COVID is long gone at this point.
Yeah. Is that what the argument they're trying to use, is saying that we still need these, we're still in the after effects of it? I mean, if it came to light and they openly said, hey, we're going to try and refund a COVID-19 program or initiative that we did, I mean, what would be the legitimate reasoning for something like that they would try to use?
Well, I wouldn't say it's a legitimate reasoning at all, but that's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to expand Obamacare subsidies that were enhanced during the COVID pandemic, specifically for the purpose of the pandemic. These are not the original Obamacare subsidies, which, by the way, I think we should get rid of to begin with. We shouldn't be propping up Obamacare.
Right.
But Biden had these expanded COVID credits that would cost the taxpayers between $400 and $500 billion over 10 years. And that's expanding taxpayer funding for things like abortion, payments directly to insurance companies, and incentivizing fraud on Obamacare. These credits, Andy, under the Biden COVID scheme, expanded the availability of subsidies to households earning more than $500,000 a year.
Wow.
Think about that for a second. You could earn $500,000 and be getting one of these COVID subsidies. That's what the Democrats are trying to expand right now. They want to keep going with these COVID credits, and it makes no sense. If you make $500,000 in a single year, then the taxpayer should not be subsidizing not just your health care, but sending a check to your insurance company. That's how this works. It goes to the insurance company to cover your health care.
Man, it is a crazy world out there for sure. Brittany, we got just about 40 seconds left here, but additional rescission bills, bringing in and reining in some of the spending at different agency levels. I've heard that we could be trying some more of those. Is that realistic? Are we going to see some more of those coming up soon?
It's always a possibility to get some more. And I'll tell you what, there's still plenty of bad spending out there to dig up in the federal government. We saw some great examples at the end of August for things like, removing development assistance for electric buses in Rwanda, ecotourism in Peru, advancing, quote, global LGBTQI plus awareness, something called baking and beauty therapy, which is just beyond me. I have no idea what that is.
Oh, we got to do some research on that one.
Those were some examples from August, but there is plenty more to dig into.
We got a lot more to go, and we're slowly doing it. It's a painful process, but we're doing it. Brittany, we appreciate it very much, my friend. Got to get you back on again real soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, Andy.
Hey, you bet. Always a pleasure. Back at it again tomorrow for a Tuesday. Until then, we'll see you back on the radio. Bye.